discussions that Open RAN is supposed to revolutionize the networking space and will help reduce costs by around 30%. But where are we on that? The market size of Open RAN is actually anticipated to still grow at a CAGR of 54% and reach around 6.6 USD billion by 2035. In 2022 alone, the size was around 1.1 billion. And various research reports in Open RAN Alliance have actually shown that Asia Pacific will hold the biggest deployments and followed by North America. There were around 130 deployments which happened in 2023. But while that happened, and people were sure about the growth drivers, which is the adoption of 5G, increasing number of internet users, and to build in flexibility in the 5G use cases. But where are we now? In India, in the first wave of 5G, there was not much adoption of Open RAN, and we thought that it's actually good because while 5G takes off, the Open RAN technology can mature a little further, and then it can be taken up. Some of the potential benefits that an Open RAN can derive, we are still trying to see it. For example, over-the-air firmware upgrade, which are secure and efficient. It is also about bringing in efficiency, intelligence, and security in the RAN network. Having said that, we still see a lot of challenges which are coming in the deployment of RAN in terms of security, especially in terms of building a standard which can be adopted across the board by various component players. And that is what we are going to discuss today, that how do we alleviate these challenges, how do we scale up in spite of these challenges, and how soon can we actually see Open RAN helping us in giving a full-fledged 5G ecosystem in play. So as a part of the panel today, let me introduce the panelists. We have, starting from the left, we have Saurav Mittal. Saurav Mittal is a VP of Standards and Industry Ecosystem in Airtel. He has been leading initiatives for building products and solutions on open and disaggregated architecture. Also heads the Standards and Industry Tech Alliances. He has around 25 years of wide experience across various companies like Telenor, Vodafone Idea, and Huawei. By education, he is ECE, Electronics and Communication Engineer from Jodhpur, and an MBA from IMC. After that, we have Rajesh Singh. Rajesh Singh is an EVP of Technology and Radio Planning, Network Planning, and Strategy. His current role in Vodafone is to provide technology leadership while preparing and evaluating future roadmaps, network design, and architecture. He also comes in with 20+ years of experience in this area, and especially in the domain of network planning, operations, system re-engineering, and integration. Then we have Arno van Houston, Field CTO Telco, Canonical. He brings in 25 years of experience in his role as a CTO for communication service providers across the globe. His focus is primarily on assisting service providers in balancing the competing priorities and adopting effective solutions and technologies. He has led mobile operator swap initiatives, transformation projects, standardization, technology evolution, and greenfield build-outs worldwide. Then we have Jan Langley, who's a Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Wireless Business Unit in VRV Solutions. He has an impressive 30-year career dedicated to the field of communications, test, and measurement. He has been leading the wireless business unit at VRV Solutions, and his expertise is centered across network infrastructure, test leadership. Additionally, very interestingly, Yan has played a pivotal role in driving innovation by championing the development of extensive Open RAN test and measurement suite. Then we have Radhakant Das. He's the head of engineering and technology, network solutions and services in TCS. He heads the innovation function for what is called in TCS as NSS, Network Solution and Services. In his current role, he runs the telecom operations business and technology function. He leads 5G, 6G, ORAN, core product engineering as a strategic initiative for TCS. Then we have Prakash Desai. Prakash is a senior director product management in Intelligent Cloud in Wind River. He is responsible for driving product strategy, product management, and industry solutions for Wind River Studio portfolio. Prior to Wind River, Prakash held various leadership roles at Nokia and Motorola in engineering, product management, business development, serving global customers. He has gained a wealth of knowledge in communications industry and is well versed in the global trends and evolution of wireless technologies. He is very passionate about developing products and portfolio that deliver value to telecom service providers. Then we have Laurence Faith, that's right, Director Telco Media Entertainment, Partner Sales APAC at Red Hat. Laurence is the Director of Telco Media and Entertainment in APAC and is leading Red Hat's APAC TME ecosystem, sales, business development, partner management, innovation strategy, and GTM. She is an energetic telecom professional with 20 plus years of international sales, pre-sales, marketing, and partner management director roles. Lastly, we have Dr. Dudu Samb. He is a technical director in Pros Technologies. A little trivia about him is that he holds nearly 10 international patents and more than 20 scientific publications in the field of electrical, electronic, and wireless communication systems. He was awarded the 2021 China Excellent Patent Award and 2021 China Guangdong Province Patent Silver Award. He is currently heading the R&D team of Tongyu Communication in China. He has been heading for 10 years and is currently a technical director at Pros Technologies. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And as we start the discussion, I would like to start with Saurav. Saurav, Airtel is one of the companies driving the Open RAN ecosystem and Open RAN blueprints. So to what extent Airtel has been able to achieve this goal to make Open RAN an area of innovation and creativity? What are the challenges that you see in this innovation?
Thanks, Dipan, for the first bouncer. Cricket World Cup going on, so let me take some analogy from the cricketing world. And some of the friends who are from maybe US and Europe who don't really know much about cricket, probably they might be more inquisitive to know about it more. So, if you are doing a team selection and you want to essentially choose a fast bowler, right? So what are the things that you are going to look at? The first thing that, in my view, you would look at, does the guy have a pace, right? Does the person has the ability to take wickets, which is about performance, right? So, in terms of the goals that we look at from an operator perspective is, first is the performance part. The second you look at, he takes wicket, but it's a one day or T20, but he leaks too many runs. The economy rate is too high, right? That doesn't work, right? If the cost is so high, the same way, from an operator perspective, the cost becomes the second paramount piece that we look after. But then, he has pace, he is good, the person is good economy, but he is injury prone. Does the person become only a one match wonder or a one season wonder? We really think that, that's not how you will make team selections, right? You would look at the person has to be really fit for the match when the match actually happens. So for us, the third key aspect is sustainability, as we say, or life cycle, as we essentially will call out, right? So you would look at some of these parameters to say, is there a performance? Is there a KPI which is really meeting the benchmarks? Is this really cost effective, right? Because if that doesn't meet the criteria, maybe probably you probably will be afraid to take that person into the team. And then if you find that the person is not really fit on the life cycle aspect, on a sustainability aspect, I think that's a real challenge which actually comes into picture. There is actually another challenge which we found while working at Airtel, which is, you expect the player or the bowler not just to play by the playbook. The batsman is also thinking, right? So you need to adapt to the situations, right? Whether to, swing the ball, not swing the ball. What kind of a pitch you want to actually look at. So that trivia over here is, to me, what we call as the IoDT aspects. India is an open device market. And it's a very interesting thing that we learned in our Open RAN journey, right? That, many of the players, and not all the devices are fully going by what the standards essentially are. There are many optional parameters. They may really not be supporting, or the network could be, let me put crudely, confused, right? What to do. And hence the performance gets impacted. So hence the performance may be impacted, right? So I think the IoDT or the interworking, I think that remains a very key aspect. So for us, as we generally call, right, the performance, the TCO, the sustainability on the life cycle aspect, and then the interworking and the IoDT, these are largely the four big parameters that we look at while doing our Open RAN evaluation. From an Airtel perspective, we've not been waiting for things to happen. We actually are making things happen. Our journey in Open RAN started 3.5 years ago. On the 4G side, we did experiments. We actually commercialized small cell. I think that's something that well established. And then when we started to work on 5G, we actually, in the Open RAN, if you look at from an ecosystem, we hosted the Global Plug Fest at our Manesar lab facility in 2020 actually as well, which was in middle of the COVID-related time. Then we essentially, when the DoT awarded the trial licenses on the 5G part, in the Punjab LSA, we did the trials with the Open RAN, right, where many of these learnings essentially came through. And we are also doing the actual trials as I speak. And we also engage with the other OEMs, large OEMs, right? Not just the Open RAN, right? There are other variants which we call at vRAN and other things. That's something that we are adopting. So from an Airtel perspective, we believe that there is a lot of promise, but there are also issues. I think, as we were just joking, right? Navigating to this room was a challenge. Similarly, navigating in the Open RAN space is by itself a challenge. But I think things will happen. And the industry is more or less maturing towards that part. And we really look forward to that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. As we move to Rajesh, in 2020, Vodafone Idea deployed a pilot program with a variety of vendors. Given the interest of leading telecom companies in the deployment of Open RAN now, what do you think are the specific use cases for Open RAN in the areas of enterprise networks, private networks, smart cities, and other industries, which can be leveraged here? And how can these use cases also contribute to the digital economy of India?
Okay, so I think we are in similar phase, because you put in the operator in the one corner.
That's right.
Rest people are more intelligent, they will come.
It's structurally put.
But we can only tell you that we can only sell them. Anyway, I think ORAN is the most ever discussed topic. We're discussing maybe last 3-4 years. And so I'll give you one story. If you know the Chinese bamboo tree, so what happens, Chinese bamboo tree, if you grow, you don't see any growth in 3-4 years. And of course, they keep on growing under soil because he spread the roots. And then when it starts growing, it grows so fast, you can see from the naked eye. and it's run past all the tree growths. It's the fastest growing plant, but in 4 years doesn't grow. So I feel OpenRhine is like that. Some 4 years, 3 years, we're seeing very small deployments here and there, some, but it's not, yet scale has not happened. But of course, why it grows, why that plant doesn't grow 4 years, that also has to be seen. So what happened, because it's going to grow very fast, it has going to be very large tree, so it has to, important that the root get properly inside, get exact strength built up, so before you grow faster. And what you need all soil, you need all right soil, right fertilizer, right irrigations, water, and even sunshine. So all the 4 or 5 ingredients is important. I think Oran, with all people are sitting here, all these 4 or 5 ingredients, what they bring in. Unless this all 4 or 5 ingredients will work together. I mean, of course they're working, and I'm saying last 3 or 4 they're working. Now there is time has come that we will see that growing, and that growth, which will be maybe very extraordinary growth, we can see the scale of what should be happen. Coming back on the original question you asked, that what we doing since last 2020 we started, but it was the technology space keep on changing, right? What we did, we started from the FDD, because first was the base layer, FDD was the demand, we went OpenRhine and we thought, okay, let us do FDD first, and then we built up REST. FDD we started building, and then FDD got stabilized, it works well, we reached up to certain level. And all of a sudden we realized, no, TDD is also required now. On top of the TDD is required. And TDD again, different phenomena. A lot of struggle was there to build up TDD on ORAN. And then TDD started building up. Till TDD was stabilizing, Mr. 5G has come. So now NR requirement has come. So now it's very complex. So ORAN is becoming day by day more complex. And I think we also has to see that this happens in a time-bound manner, because if you keep on waiting so long, it should not happen that we should wait for now 6G for ORAN, right? Because we see 5G has come, NR, and not only NR, now we'll say NR N78, then we'll say why not N256, and don't gigaband and millimeter wave also will come. So all this compass, because finally RAN, it's a SRAN, it's not that single RAN anymore. It has now 5 bands more or less people are operating. So I can say that FDD was very successful, and this is the technology was a lot of promise. I think Saurabh also talked about that. That's why we keep on betting on it. And operators are giving a lot of time, efforts. I mean, since last 20, Indian market especially, I see a lot of effort has been put to how to make it success. And now also I see it was in all continent. You take North America, APAC, India, and even South African market, all people more or less did some here and there, some clusters, some trials, but only couldn't be scale much. We're not seeing the scale except 1, 2, this Rakuten or NTT Docomo, and maybe US is some example, but not beyond that. So now I think we're reaching towards maturity. We feel things are more or less, all technology is right now stabilized, because in between the 5G have dislodged it, because 5G one came, people are focusing on the 4G ORAN, and all of a sudden 5G make main entry. So you have to club both, because no more, anybody will say if it's going NSA architecture, you can't go alone 4G, you have to go with 5G plus 4G. So that's why I think there was a little shift in between. But now those also is more or less getting stabilized. And rest things which you are working since long, so we know how the software shifted. And then of course, meanwhile, there have been cloud technology, which was also a challenge, because ORAN was not on the ORAN, it was on the cloud technology. So basically, even cloud still was required stabilizations, which was just going through a transition journey, because we were moving from the metal to, stunted metallic structures to monolithic structures to cloud structures. So core cloud at least now has to stabilized. And that's where we can, ORAN also started leveraging the ORAN development, also taking leverage of the what cloud maturity has come. So on top of that can be built in. So I think the cloud maturity plus this 4G plus 5G coming in and all band, all TDD and FDD, this all has become one combination now. We understand very well this. And I'll say in parity feature performance, it's also coming a little closer. So hope so very soon we'll see large scale deployment. That's what hope operator do with the right cost, because TCO also is one challenge which need to be solved. But I think with the scale that can be easily solved, because we could never manage the scale. We always remain cluster based or very small deployment and all that. So hope so, if that this all is getting sorted out, very soon it will scale up and TCO also will drop, and then the operator can really goes all the kind of benefit what Orion talks about.
Perfect. Thank you. So coming to Arno, while Rajesh talked about scale-ups, right? Now to execute these scale-ups, the canonical landscape, as we saw, is actually empowering customers to leverage the virtualized Open RAN architecture. Can you elaborate a little bit on the Ubuntu real-time kernel RAN operating system that you have built, right, which is primarily fostering the security part and empowering secure scale-ups?
I was going to make a sports reference as well, but more rugby, because it's currently World Cup. And my team is famous for putting 7 forwards in South Africa, right? So within the security landscape, it's difficult to answer it in a holistic context unless you understand the complexity of what the open aspect of Open RAN brings to the ecosystem, all of the different players within that ecosystem. When we looked at the ability for customers to use Ubuntu in a highly distributed fashion in DU RAN sites or in small clusters of compute out at edge towers, it brings its own complexity in terms of lifecycle management, patching, security. But if every use case, in this case Open RAN, thinks about security in its own context and it's an afterthought, then we've lost the race, right? That security vector, the attack vectors are so big that in this space it is paramount that each part of that stack is inherently secure, uses best practices in terms of deployment, operations, lifecycle management, patching strategy, and still has the capability to actually outperform the previous generation, or else you wouldn't have to move, right? Economics matter, right? In Open RAN, the promise is cost saving. But if the cost saving comes at the cost of forming a new exclusive club with a bunch of vendors that make it proprietary, just proprietary enough that it is not open source, that it is not moving at the same pace of the open source projects, then we've lost that battle again, right? So economics will not improve if we lock customers in. So what we did when we looked at Ubuntu is one of the most widely adopted Linuxes in the world. Public clouds, private clouds gets used in anger everywhere. What we inherently do in Canonical is we look at what value can we add when customers use it in use case A, B, or C. And in the Open RAN specific use case, we went with our silicon enablement partners, NVIDIA and Intel, and we looked at where the state of Open RAN actually is, what they were doing, what their ambitions were in terms of what direction they were going with silicon. And we tried to enhance, secure the operating system to serve the need. Instead of just saying you need real-time kernel, we investigated, do you need real-time kernel? Everyone we spoke to, all customers said, I want real-time kernel, do you have it? And we asked, why do you need it? Very few customers actually knew you only needed it for one component in the 8 components within that RAN ecosystem. And we then said, well, if you think about real-time kernel, inherently, you are reserving all of the cycles on a CPU, and therefore there's no multi-tenancy, there's no additional loads going onto those CPUs. So are you using it at the most cost-effective way? Are you able to actually get the CapEx spent to generate ROI, right? Is it effective? And we noticed, because we made real-time kernel available for the BBU with Intel, we worked 15 months on that enablement phase, and we focused on things where we could add value. Can we make it more performant? Can we make it more power efficient? And we ended up with a OS that is 3% more power efficient on the DU side. Doesn't sound like much, right? OpEx cost, energy cost. Mobile operators use 2% of energy in each country, right? So if I'm looking at the tier 1 in the UK, they use up to 2% of the power in that country. If we can save even 3% on 100,000 cell tower sites, that means a lot, right? That means an effective thing that we added as value, not trying to be a CU or a DU vendor, not trying to take some of the space in the ecosystem that other vendors are in. We're just trying to contribute in that stack. Additionally, what makes sense is anyone can stand up one of, right? I can stand up one Kubernetes cluster, one server. But what if you have to do it 100,000 times and want the same outcome, same controls, same security level? That takes a little bit of thinking in terms of your approach, your level of maturity internally in the company, because it's also an organizational change. It's not just a technology change. And for us, it's important to enable customers by giving them tooling and automation that thinks about that at scale problem in terms of security, lifecycle management, and the operations of their DUs and radio units. So when we created real-time kernel, we worked with both the major silicon vendors, because Open RAN in Intel is based on the FlexRAN SDK. We worked on that real-time kernel specifically for them. But in the other approach from NVIDIA Aerial, they don't use real-time kernel. They use hardware accelerated paths. They have GPUs and DPUs. And we also ensured that that experience is also top class, most performance, most power efficient. So in both of those cases, our value add is really from an open source ecosystem,
Right,
in terms of ensuring that the operating system is capable. Whether you put a ACC 100 accelerator in or whether you put a Marvel accelerator in, both of those cases, the OS matters in terms of the kernel being able to cope and the throughput, performance, and efficiencies over the life cycle of that unit. So that's really how we approach this problem and where we serve our customers.
perfect. Jan, now coming to testing and test bed as a service. And we know that, you know, the ORAN Alliance front haul specifications developing ORAN compliant RAN and front haul test practices is something where VRV is pioneering on. Can you comment on how this test bed as a service, especially for RIC, right, would foster the deployment of Open RAN, and can it be made faster? Can it get into a lesser lead time of coming into force?
Sure. So in order for ORAN, Open RAN to be successful and meet performance parity with closed systems, test is an important aspect. And increasingly, as we move from functional to performance test, you need larger scale systems that reach across the interfaces from the RU through to the core. So VRV's flagship product is a UE simulator TM500, which very much was around radio test. We've now moved with ORU, DU, CU, and core test. And recently, a couple of years ago, we launched a RIC test. And I think in order for Open RAN to be successful, RIC has to be successful. And for RIC to be successful, you've got to have strong RIC test. So VRV's recently got an agreement with VMware where VMware provides us a RIC, we provide the RIC test platform, and together we have a test bed that allows X and R app developers, which again is the secret sauce, in my opinion, to the success of Open RAN, can use this test bed to produce many RAN scenarios that they otherwise would find it very difficult to achieve. And with this scenario generator, they're able to do a lot of performance testing in a digital environment, which then perhaps simplifies the very complex over-the-air testing that would come towards the end. So as a service then becomes an extension of having a test bed. So a test bed can be supplied as a capital requirement, but increasingly now we provide solutions on an OpEx basis. Much of our solutions are available in the cloud, AWS, etc. And I think, to follow the fundamental tenet of Open RAN of a lower TCO, as complexity goes up, the cost of test has to come down. So by us being able to offer these flexible OpEx solutions, we're able to meet some of the principles of that Open RAN ethos and enable a lot of new entrants in XApp and RApp development.
Perfect. So coming to Radha, and we'll come back to you, Jan, after we finish. No, TCS as a master SI, um, and with an experience of, let's say, multi-technology network functions, and especially around architectures which ranges around core, transport, RAN, OSS, NFV, cloud. What do you think would be an important accelerator, given that we are trying to adopt Open RAN as soon as possible, in this adoption, accelerator in adoption? And given that there are quite a number of OEMs available in the market currently, what are those challenges and gaps that are still present, which probably falls through the cracks, although there are multiple OEMs? Slightly low. Is his mouthpiece fine? No, it's not working.
Thank you so much for inviting us to this place. I wish I would have been the last person to talk because we are the aggregators. If everybody comes in, then I can aggregate, right? But yes, it's okay. Nevertheless, at least, see, you're right. There are a lot of new startups because it's ORAN is all about innovation. And it actually promotes the small scale enterprises, the startups, to actually come up with innovations, which actually comes from the startup communities. And there are a lot of, we have found in the challenges, there's a lot of important pieces have been missed out as a part of for the sake of innovations, the operability part is missed out. And like, integrating how the two OS or working on the test systems or again, automations. So all of them have been not taken up separately by any startup. And this is where we see that in ORAN, the master SI, this has a very, very important role. And in master SI, we see and understand this responsibility of making this ORAN as a higher or faster adoption cycle globally. We've been talking to a lot of governments, and like Pradhan Mantri has mentioned yesterday, Mr. Modi ji, that he has just inaugurated 100 labs in India. We are also seeing Australia is doing the same rounds, and the US is also doing the same. And these labs are something very, very critical for the startup community to come up with their innovations, whether it is a RRH or the L1 software or some piece of hardware, let's say it's a digital front end or RF front ends, or it is L2, L3 softwares. So those will accelerate those innovations to be a real products. And at the same time, when we see the product, it can be prototype to start with, but when you actually put in a scale, the deployability of it, the scalability of it is actually totally a different ball game altogether. And this is where the SI will play the game. And we do see that, again, there is from the operator perspective, so my co-panels have already discussed. Like I think Rajesh has very rightly said, some 5 spectrum, 5 bands are typically being used. As long as this band specifications are kind of consolidated across the globe, we do see that the startups can actually spend good amount of R&Ds and actually come up with a product which is much more stable. And we do see that our current or tier one operators in India, whether it is in or in US, they are finding it stable, whether they can do a trial for say 50 sites, 100 sites and all. But going beyond that, like giving an order of 1,000 sites or 20,000 sites, there's a lot beyond the product itself can deliver. So that's what it is missing, and this is what. So we at TCS with a lot of learnings in what we're deploying right now as India's national carrier, and then we see what are things are missing out which we can fill in, so that ORAN actually comes up. It is as an OEM with the multiple vendors, and anybody can participate in. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not. Is it working? Okay, so Prakash, we all know about your collaboration with TCS, but we are not going to talk about it right now. We would rather want you to speak about the Wind River Studio, which is based on the Starling X project, and what kind of innovations are you trying to bring into the industry in terms of aggregation through that?
Okay, thank you, Deepan. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel. Great insights, and thank you, audience, for your time. So, the whole Starlink X project basically is an open source community started about 5 years ago by Wind River and Intel. Its foundation is based on 4 O's: open source, open community, open design, and open development. The whole goal is to promote an open ecosystem to come up with a cloud native distributed edge platform, right? So from a Wind River perspective, everything that we develop goes upstream first to Starlink X. We then take it back, harden the Linux, add tools around analytics, orchestration. We add services on top of that. We also offer support and maintenance, and then package that as a Wind River Studio for operators, right? And while Starlink X is not telco specific, some of the successes that we have seen are purely in the telco space. And then I want to touch on some of the topics raised by our operator friends, and they are very timely and very valid. Saurabh raised the topic on interoperability. Yes, interoperability was a challenge and is, because in one of the earlier forums, someone described Open RAN as being a Lego puzzle, putting all the different Lego blocks together. I think we are a little bit more ahead than that. From a Wind River perspective, we have solved the complexity of interoperability by offering a Ready for Wind River program wherein we integrate the cloud platform along with the hardware. When I say hardware, I'm talking about the servers, the NICs, the accelerators. So what happens is you get a pre-integrated, pre-validated infrastructure plus cloud platform stack ready to deploy workloads, right? Going forward, we are also working with the telco OEMs to offer an integrated complete stack solution which is ready to deploy, basically to accelerate the Open RAN. So integration is just step 1, right? And step 2, as Rajesh pointed out, is all about scale, right? When it comes to day 1 and day 2 operations, upgrading, updating, lifecycle management, optimizing the network, Radhakant talked about some of the SOM aspects, right? Now think about a 30, 40,000 node network that you have to manage and upgrade within 1 or 2 maintenance windows. That is a reality today. In North America, we are with one of the tier 1s who have about 30,000 plus nodes, and we are at a point wherein we can upgrade that in a couple maintenance windows. And it's all because purely of automation and orchestration. That plays a big role. And finally, I think a couple of the operators actually said it well, that the comparison and the reference point today of Open RAN is not with any other Open RAN, it's with the traditional RAN network. The traditional RAN network has a good 30, 40 years ahead of them in terms of performance and reliability. Even when it comes to defining the KPIs, as we saw in Vodafone, right? They always say that macro is the gold standard, and you have to meet or beat the gold standard KPIs. And we have seen that today in North America at Fuse in Madrid. The Vodafone CTO actually shared some of the metrics. Open RAN that we deployed was either at par, and in some cases the KPIs far exceeded the traditional RAN. We are seeing the same results in Japan. We are seeing the same results in Finland as well, right? So things are happening slowly but surely. So from our perspective, we are just not another vendor. We are a partner to the CSPs when we start with them right from the conceptual stage and then go along the way till mass deployment, right? And then I wanted to address the second part of your question on innovation. when the Open RAN standards were being developed, some of the key design tenets were TCO. Someone talked about TCO, flexibility, scalability of the networks, and then last but not the least, how fast can you deploy these new features, right? So we are in a unique position at Wind River. We are in the middle between the COTS and the telco OEM software, right? So we are working together with both of them to offer a lot of innovative features that are coming up. Someone talked about energy efficiency. With the recent crisis in Europe, we see now a lot of emphasis from many carriers on saving energy. So we are working with the hardware vendors and telco OEMs and coming up with a bunch of energy saving features. In one of the plug fests that we did in UK, we are showing up to 30% reduction in power consumption at the base station, right? Second, operations at scale. Like day one and day two operations have to be easy. And we are coming up with the whole operations at scale features wherein it makes the life of the operators much, much easier and simpler, right? How we do that? We have componentized the whole upgrade process, meaning we have divided the network right from hardware, NICs, accelerators, Kubernetes layer, cloud platform, BIOS, and then the container functions, right? You can upgrade and manage each of those layers independently. That gives great flexibility to the carriers of how they upgrade and manage the networks, right? The next thing is a lot of the edge is becoming intelligent and more powerful. One of the ways we are innovating is trying to add new workloads. We are trying to offload the cell site router into a virtualized function at the edge. As we start developing some disruptive technologies like V2X, we will see more and more innovation coming at the edge in terms of mobile edge computing and V2X use cases. As network slicing becomes more prominent, you will see a lot of new functions and new innovation coming in the space of private networks, enterprise use cases, and many more. I think those are some of the areas where we see innovation happening. Thank you.
Laurence, and especially in your parlance in the ASPAC, in the Asia Pacific, we know that there are a lot of field trials which are happening across various regions of Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
So how have you seen the global standards being implemented across various regions of Asia Pacific, and how it has helped reach some of the remote, underserved connectivity areas?
Yeah. No, thank you for the question. A pleasure to be here today with you. So the first thing that I would say is that the Open RAN initiative has been widely embraced by the industry and even more so by the service providers, because I think what everyone sees in that initiative is the opportunity to revive and re-diversify a supply chain of vendors that had strongly eroded over the past decade, right? And the initiative aims at achieving this through introducing some drastic changes in the way network have been architected, right? And there I'm referring to a few things. The first one is more on the horizontal front, where the standardization between RU, DU, and CU, which brings the opportunity to start mix and matching the different vendors across the board. The second one is related to the stack disaggregation in a more vertical fashion, basically delayering the proprietary hardware from the software, and thereby introducing and giving the opportunity to service providers such as Vodafone and Airtel to go for a more standardized hardware instead of using proprietary hardware as it was the case before. I think what service providers see are definitely the opportunity with the Open RAN initiative to introduce new players into their ecosystems of solutions, possibly identifying new niche players that are more specialized and suited to address less lucrative part of the networks. And that's typically the case when you think of deployments in rural areas and extreme rural areas. So that is one thing. I think from a Red Hat perspective, we obviously do a lot of the things that have been already highlighted in terms of TCO optimization, cost savings around energy use, ability to deploy the DU on a single node, all this to make the TCO more viable, even in more challenging areas to be deployed. One example that I would give is the work that we are doing. So we are doing all this, but in addition to that, we work together with the TIP Open RAN Alliance in countries such as Indonesia, for instance, where together with the government, with the local communities, with the rest of the partner ecosystem, we are validating use cases specifically targeted to the coverage of rural and extreme rural areas. And you have to understand, like in the case of Indonesia, for instance, it's a very wide country that consists of several thousands of islands. They cover, I think it's 3 or 4 different time zones, so very, very spread, with a population that is also quite spread. And the challenge is really for the government, to stick by their commitment to bridge the digital divide, right? And to increase digital equality across the citizens. And they've declared broadband coverage as essential as other utilities like running water, gas, and electricity. So they are in the pursuit of that, and we are working together with them in order to achieve that. We've been doing now for the last 18 months, POCs together with partners like Mavnir, Bicels, and others, to demonstrate the viability of this kind of use cases.
Perfect.
Okay.
Dr. Sam, so sorry to keep you waiting. Given your expertise in RF and radio antennas, I would really want you to focus there. And if we bring in the sustainability and carbon neutrality aspect of antennas, how do you think India can fulfill its commitment towards this sustainability, carbon neutrality, while keeping also its competitiveness in the global telecom market?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the invitation in this panel. So we are also from the research and development industry, and we have done a lot of experimentation also. So we are quite happy also to share some of our findings also and challenges. So coming from pros mainly, so we are more on the upfront, so which means the antenna systems and also the radio unit itself. So which means the antenna system means that's the component that you see on top of a towers that is, serving us to send and receive signals throughout the space. And also it's connected to the radio unit. So in terms of research, so when it comes to this one, so we're trying to use what we call eco-friendly components, because the antenna system itself is composed of a lot of radiating elements also, and a lot of also coaxial cablings. So we're trying to make the antenna a little bit smarter. Right. So by reducing the loss, for example, so we try to avoid 70% of soldering points, for example. That could result on having at least 30% down the carbon emissions, for example. And the second thing is that with this kind of concept, you are able also to address the power consumptions, because 90% of your input power is transmitted over the air. If you compare it to the traditional way, where you only have 60 to 70%, so which means you're losing 30 to 40% that you have no idea where it goes. So looking at it in that way, so we believe that this approach also is addressing also what we call high performances, because when you reduce the loss also, you're getting high performances. And at the same time, you get a better sector efficiency, because you don't look at like the efficiency at a single point. So you're looking at it from a global perspective. And at the second time also, this is very, let's say, promising when we addressing automation, for example, which is also creating a new industry, let's say, if I call it like that, research directions. And at the same time also, the integration between the RF part and those, let's say, lower layer from the network itself. So we're doing a lot of work in that one also, so try to simplify the architecture of the site, of the network itself. Because those two components, they play a very significant role, because they need to operate in a real time. So which means you have to keep the latency, I mean, as low as possible. At the same time also, you have to reduce also the, we call it the propagation error. So yeah, that's it to summarize. So don't want to go too deep, so.
No, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We're sort of nearing the hour, but I just wanted to delve a little bit of perspective from Saurav and Rajesh on the regulatory support and how it can help in a faster Open RAN adoption in the country.
So I think regulatory support is there. There is nothing, if you say the regulatory is blocking, but other way around, regulatory is, as you heard today also, Prime Minister, they're talking innovations. And ORAN is, I think, is real where innovation comes. Traditional RAN, there's innovation is not possible. I think we've not talked much about that RIC platform where XApp and RAPs are getting open to all startups. Anybody can develop any kind of APIs and plugged in, and more customized services can be brought in. So that's can be more innovation is possible. So once you, I mean, this government is talking about today all innovation. So, and they want to all startups come in, more ecosystem get developed. So I think all supports are there. And I think many people will knowing, but India especially and US government is working on this project so, and very, very, I mean, recently when Mr. Biden was here, there is a joint statement has been released on the ORAN, and ORAN was a part of the discussions. And it's a release, press release is there if you all can read. So that way, is two big governments are talking about those promoting, and all possible supports are there.
Perfect. Saurav, anything to add?
Not really. I mean, Rajesh already mentioned, right? There is, I think within the, just on a limited note, right? There is a good collaboration between US and Indian government, and it's out in the public domain. There's Quad summits which essentially happen, and the industry has been looking at, especially the governments in these areas have been looking at how Open RAN could be promoted. Not because of any reason, but the idea being that how the innovation can be, I mean, improved upon, right? At the end of the day, telecom is an extremely critical infrastructure for the world, and there has to be resilience into the, I mean, making this infrastructure. I think that's the key focus as far as we see. And other than that, right, from the regulatory front, Open RAN is not a new radio technology, right? I think that's one basic thing that we have to really keep in mind. I think it's just that how the networks are really being built. And you know, Open RAN has to win the market on its own merit. I think that's the right way to look at it. The governments have been supporting the startups and the ecosystem. Various governments, I mean, not just in India, right, but in UK, in US, the governments have been giving grants to the startups to promote the Open RAN ecosystem. I think that's how it's supposed to be, and more or less things are in place.
Perfect. So, and thank you so much, everyone, for, I'll bother you with one thing more. So what we essentially find is that while Airtel and Vodafone are trying to foster the use cases, bring in the adoption of Open RAN in the market, there are impressive innovations which are being brought about by Canonical, by VRV, by Pros, and of course as an aggregator, as Radhakant said, right? Wind River and TCS are trying to stitch all the blocks together. And thanks a lot for your comment, Laws, for the entire aspect. Just to conclude, in the last 1 minute, if you can give each one of you one word of recommendation to the country to increase the adoption of Open RAN, and please stick to one word.
I think the only word comes to me is work in progress. So keep working.
Right, Rajesh.
I'll say just a scale up.
Right.
I think as vendors, we should recognize that economics matter to the operator. We shouldn't create exclusive clubs. We should keep it open if it's really open.
Open if it's really open. That's interesting, yeah.
Simply put, regression testing.
Sorry?
Regression testing.
Regression testing.
Scale and interpret, 2 words.
For us, it's partnership. I mean, we're very excited to work with TCS on Open RAN and also them as an SI partner in India and outside. So it's definitely partnership for us.
Okay, 2 words, open and ecosystem.
Perfect.
2 words, joint collaboration. So.
That's a nice one. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time today as we near the close of the hour. It's been a pleasure to have each one of you in the panel. Thank you so much.